There's a shocking viral video making its rounds online, and it features cops with assault weapons pointed at homeless people in Venice Beach, California. Let's watch.
Los Angeles Police Department, everybody inside. One at a time. Hands up, we can see him. Go down to the ground. Go down. Everybody inside. Come out. Everybody down to the ground. You too. I see you right there. Come out. Come on out. How many more are in there? I got this. My man, take your hands in your pocket for me, all right?
So when that video went viral, many believe that it was due to an ordinance that was just passed by the LA City Council regarding homeless people being displaced, moved from areas where you find encampments. But apparently this story or that video was really about cops being cops. So both instances are awful, and I'll tell you about what the LA City Council is doing in just a minute. But first, why were the cops there? Why were assault weapons drawn? Well, LAPD officer Norma Eisenman told Insider that the officers were responding to a radio call warning of an assault with a deadly weapon. The suspect was described as a white male in a blue tent who threatened to shoot people with his gun. So the cops show up, guns drawn, there were assault weapons drawn. Officers arrived, she says. The witness pointed out the tent with the alleged male with a handgun and tactical deployed. But was it an actual gun? Well, luckily, no one got hurt. It's very easy for a situation like that to devolve, and I wish rather than having guns drawn, the cops would have maybe asked a few questions before, approaching people, especially homeless people, in such an insanely threatening manner. But the LAPD said the suspect, whose name remains unknown, alleged that a woman attempted to steal his bike, which led him to pull out his pellet gun in defense. Though the suspect was temporarily detained, carrying a pellet gun is not illegal, and he was eventually let go, according to the Los Angeles Police Department. So there was some misinformation regarding what was going down, what prompted the police to have their assault weapons drawn on homeless people in Venice Beach, California. Doesn't change the fact that it's obviously wrong and insane for cops to show up like that. Someone could have gotten hurt. All it would take was one person to make the wrong move, and we know how that kind of story ends. But this does also open up an opportunity to discuss some of the recent actions by the LA City Council in regard to homeless encampments throughout LA County. And to be sure, homelessness continues to be a massive crisis in California and specifically in Los Angeles County. We experience it every day, we see it every day. It's honestly the most shameful thing to see in a country as wealthy as the United States. I've talked about it on this show multiple times, and I want to talk about it now. So what is this ordinance? Well, it prohibits sitting, sleeping, or storing items on public property near sensitive uses. That includes libraries, parks, daycare centers, and schools. But it also states that enforcement in any of those locations would not occur until the city council has reviewed each location and voted to give the go-ahead. There has been a long, drawn out back and forth between the LA City Council and judges in regard to what is and is not allowed, what is and is not constitutional in regard to these encampments. Federal judges have weighed in regarding encampments in public parks, and they've argued that the city needs to immediately put these individuals in housing because of the fact that these public spaces are no longer, they're no longer accessible to anyone else, to people who live in the area, families who live in the area who might want to enjoy those parks. But here's the question: where do you place people who are unhoused? Are you just gonna shuffle them around? Where are you gonna put them? That's the big question. And this is why I have such a negative view of the Democrats, the Democratic leadership in California. Because Californians voted to increase their taxes through a measure called HHH. And the whole point was to build affordable housing. And that has been incredibly slow. It has so far, in my opinion, been a failed project because you have people like Eric Garcetti giving out contracts to real estate developers who inflate their construction costs and who are taking forever to build these housing projects. It's incredibly frustrating. So to say, we can't have these encampments anymore. Okay, where are you gonna put people? These are humans. Where are you gonna put them? And so they've been offered temporary housing. We have over 100,000 vacant apartment units and houses in Los Angeles County. A few years ago, the LA City Council, in an effort to urge landlords to rent them out, was threatening to implement additional taxes if they refused to do it. I don't know what happened, but the city council dropped that. So is there a shortage of affordable housing? Yes, there should definitely be more construction for affordable housing. But there are also other opportunities, vacant units that should be utilized right now. People are being pushed into shelters or permanent housing. Is that a long-term solution? It is not. It is not a long-term solution. But let's also be clear, because this is the other issue I have. Allowing homeless people to just waste away in misery and die on the streets in these encampments, that's also not the humane answer. And for the activists and also corporate Democrats who are like, no, we're the good guys. We are supporting homeless people who get to live on giant piles of garbage on the streets. No, that's not activism, that's not admirable. We need to be fighting aggressively for permanent housing for these people. Telling us that you're a good guy because you're allowing them to keep whatever they want to keep around them, it's nothing. That's nothing compared to what you actually need to do in providing housing. And in addition to that, social services so they can get their feet back on the ground and get their lives together. That includes mental health care. That includes job training. That includes drug rehabilitation because some of these people are unfortunately addicted to drugs. Obviously not all of them, I'm not generalizing here, but to treat homeless people in California as some sort of monolith is stupid because they're not a monolith. There are different groups that are dealing with different struggles and need a different approach. But what we're seeing from the city right now is just this superficial baseline. We'll put you in Project Room Key, we'll put you in some temporary housing, we're gonna push you into some shelters. It's just not a long-term solution, it's not sustainable. So what else does this ordinance indicate? Well, tents or other objects that are found to be within 2 feet of a fire hydrant, that's not allowed. So these are all the restrictions thanks to this new ordinance. People are found to be sitting, sleeping, or storing property within 5 feet of a building, usable entrance, or within 10 feet of a driveway, that's not allowed. Tents or other objects are obstructing the street or bicycle path. Look, some of this stuff makes sense. You don't want tents in the street. It's dangerous for everyone involved. It's dangerous for the people living in those tents. It's dangerous for people on the road. Also, you're not allowed to have encampments or tents that are blocking sidewalks in ways that prevent wheelchair users from traveling on them in violation of the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act, the landmark civil rights law. And I also want to just note that the way that this ordinance is written, the city can't come in and just displace encampments on day one. They show up and they have to give a 14-day notice. Once an area is approved for enforcement by the city council, signs would need to be installed, followed by a 14-day public notice period. Enforcement would be accompanied by a street engagement strategy with social workers and others reaching out to a particular encampment over a period that could last up to 4 months. Once an area is cleared, outreach workers would return over a period of 3 months to see if homeless people return. If they come back, additional outreach could be conducted to promote voluntary compliance. But again, we need permanent solutions, not temporary housing where in a month or two, these people are homeless again. That is not a sustainable solution. And when you step back and you look at the bigger picture on a federal level, certain things need to be outlawed. Private equity firms should not be allowed to buy up single family residences to then turn them into rentals so they can monopolize the slumlord industry. We should also minimize or highly regulate foreign investment in residential properties in the United States. If we have a housing crisis, if we have a shortage of homes, why are we allowing foreigners who have no interest in actually living in the United States purchase up homes in the US? Makes no sense. There are so many potential solutions, and we need to focus on robust measures for public housing. I think Austria's model for social housing is a good example of that, and I hope to give you guys more details about it in a future episode. But don't fall for misinformation online, but more importantly, don't buy this notion that no, people are being helped out. They're being placed in housing. Everything's good, everything's great. No, the solutions right now are not sustainable, they're not realistic, and we need to make difficult decisions that require quite a bit of resources in order to get this issue resolved. We need to address the underlying economic conditions that lead to the homelessness that we're seeing, not just in Los Angeles, not just in California, but across the country.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.